Well, good Saturday morning, friends. Mark Holmes here, of course, with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo, as well as Joe Bear in the house. And as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. So let's get open for business here and let's wake up the football gods. Hope everybody's doing well on this Saturday. You know, we've got lots to do here at the Joe Boo Sports Report to get ready for tomorrow. We've got a 1 o'clock game, which means it's going to be a lot of stuff I need to do before 1 o'clock. Of course, getting the big sub ready. We're having a taco sub. It's going to be steak taco on one side and shrimp taco on the other. And we're going to have quite a few people. Shout out to Michael Ward, who is coming all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast to join us here for the game. And we're going to have some other people here as well. We're going to be hopefully having a ball watching the Dallas Cowboys hopefully destroy the Texans. Sorry, Eastside. Sorry, Eastside. But this isn't about you. This is about the Cowboys. The Cowboys are a 17-point favorite. I don't know that anybody's been favored more than 17 points this season. I don't think that anybody has. If it does, it surprises me. That's more like a college football slaughter point spread. And I started wondering, what are the biggest point spreads in the history of football and how do they do? Well, back in 2013, the Denver Broncos were a 28-point favorite over the Jaguars. They were averaging 46 points per game. Think about that for a second. 46 points a game. That was with Peyton Manning. And going against the Jaguars that were averaging only 10.2. So here's what's amazing on that. The Broncos jumped out to a 14-0 lead and ended up not covering. They won 35-19. Interesting. Very, very interesting. In fact, looking at some of the biggest point spreads in history, there are several that are well into the 20s. Most times, the team does not cover. So there's that. 17 points. The Texans have played some games that they've kind of kept in pace with teams. They've actually had some one-score games earlier part of the season, although now they're a little bit hurt with the wide receiver Brandon Cooks being hurt and things and not playing, as well as some other injuries and things. And the reality is the Texans with Dan O'Brien, who had built a decent team, literally just deconstructed it, and they are just without talent and have not been able to draft well to replace it. They've just made a lot of bad moves to be where they are. And fortunately for them, they're going to probably have the number 1 pick. So the last thing the Texans want to do is get a win right now. You don't want to get a win. But be that as it may, I started thinking this morning because no matter what I do, I get so much hate for Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, he's a game manager and stuff. And see, I don't think you guys seem to understand that typically, you don't want to be just a pass-happy, pass-heavy team. That has been our downfall for many, many years because when you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And you can look at the years where Tony Romo had his most yards and touchdowns and all that. Team wasn't balanced, and the team ended up 8-8. He threw for 4,903 yards in 2012, and we ended up 8-8. And he, of course, took all the blame for the team not making it very far. But in the years that we were balanced, 2007 and 2014, where you had DeMarco Murray in 2014 running 1,800 yards, that team was probably the best team that we've had until now, since the Super Bowl seasons. And that's a fact. We just didn't have the defense to go along with it. They were good. They were great at taking the football away. But they still couldn't get that stop in the end when you needed it. Balance is the key. And you can go back to the 90s where you look at Troy Aikman, who only one time had more than 20 touchdown passes. Emmitt Smith, the all-time leading rusher, he didn't get that in garbage time. And you can even go back as far as Roger Staubach with the running backs that he had, of course, being balanced. And that's where we are now, and thank God we are. You don't want your quarterback to have to throw 300 yards every week. You don't. You trust me, you want him to be around 250 yards, and you want to be running the football for like 150 yards. If you can do that every week consistently, you're going to win games, and that's what the Dallas Cowboys are doing. You know, Thursday Night Football, watching Derek Carr, who had probably the worst game of his career. I think he had a 39 rating in that game. It was just bad. I think in the second half he had a 0 rating is what it worked out to be. And I don't put it all on Derek Carr. I put some of that on the coaching as well, because Devontae Adams was eating Jalen Ramsey for lunch, and they didn't throw it all to Devontae Adams the rest of the game. It just didn't make any sense. But we constantly hear, especially Skip Bayless, talking about, Dak Prescott fleeced Jerry Jones for money. I don't want to hear anything more about Dak Prescott being overpaid. Because when you look at the top 10, where Dak Prescott has fallen way down in quarterback compensation, there's not very many of those guys in the top 10 that are doing good right now. In fact, there's not many of those guys in the top 10 that you would honestly take right now over Dak Prescott. Would you take Aaron Rodgers right now, who has had an injury-plagued season, who just has not been really getting into gear at $50 million, $10 million more than Dak? Would you take Russell Wilson right now with his 8 TD passes for the season at $49 million? Would you take Kyler Murray with his $46.1 million? Would you take Deshaun Watson with his $46 million salary that he has average and has played one game this season? You take Pat Mahomes. I'm going to give you take Pat Mahomes, and you probably take Josh Allen. I will give you those two. But amazingly enough, Derek Carr makes more money than Dak Prescott. Derek Carr has never won a playoff game. Derek Carr is always that guy that has a few good games to say, yeah, he's a quarterback. And then he has mostly stinkers. Yeah. Then you got Matthew Stafford, Matthew Stafford may actually be done. He's getting up there in age. He's been beat down in Detroit, and you're seeing that finally the wheels are falling off of the vehicle. It's not to say he's not going to have some productive seasons, but you look at that and say you're closer to the end than you are to the beginning. And I can't say that Dak Prescott hasn't had some injuries as well. But somehow the Dallas Cowboys now are moving their way up to being the number one offense potentially by the end of the season. They went from 27 to 3rd. And in the time that he's been back, have scored more points than any other team. By far. So we can go through and we can say Dak sucks and this, that, and the other. But here's the thing. Here's the thing that's crazy is everybody is looking for quarterbacks. They don't grow on trees. Right behind Dak Prescott, you got Carson Wentz at $32 million. The Commanders signed him thinking that he might be the solution, or at least a good stopgap. And he's been beat out by Tyler Heineke, and Tyler Heineke ain't exactly good. Now, Jared Goff, to the amazement of a lot of people, actually has turned into one of the better quarterbacks this season. Much maligned and given up for, laughed about going to the Lions, he's got their offense actually humming. And Kirk Cousins has actually been playing really well this season, and right now has the number 2 seed in the NFL. So money isn't always the factor of whether a guy can play or not. But as I look at this and see, Lamar Jackson's going to get paid in there at some point. He'll be higher than Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's contract is falling lower and lower down, and he's doing things that a lot of these guys above him are not. With that, I want to remind some of you guys what was said. I'm just curious. I'm curious because after week 1, I should go back to that game, Tampa Bay live stream, and listen to you guys. Listen to how everybody acted after that game.
Is the Cowboys season already over in all seriousness with this major injury?
Seriousness, first of all, I'm mad that you asked the question because it almost took my thunder away. The season is over. I mean, one game in. How many times do I have to say this, Dan Orlovsky? How many times do I have to say this, playmaker? Just wait. Don't wait, just be patient. It's coming. The only bad part about all of this is that I like a little suspense. I mean, this is television. I'm looking for theater. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not thinking that, week one, I mean, damn, the die has been cast and it's over. But what other decision are we to come to? First of all, Dak Prescott looked like garbage prior to getting injured, and I don't wish injury on anybody, so I'm very sad that he's injured.
We know that.
I know. I hope I want him to get better, as quick as he possibly can. But, I mean, my Lord, he wasn't looking good to begin with. So now you got your quarterback down. You got a number one receiver that ain't really a number one yet. We got to be convinced that he is. You got a running back that's had slippage over the last 2 years, and you try to figure out what you're going to do with him. And by the way, you got a number one, again, your number one receiver was gone. Amari Cooper's gone. Cedric Wilson's no scrub. He's gone. I'm just looking at this squad, and I'm saying, wait a minute. You had issues to begin with, which I told y'all about. Not that y'all didn't know, but y'all wanted to reiterate it to y'all. Y'all knew they had issues coming into this season offensively. We know Micah Parsons, that dude. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that he got the chance. I think that he has the chance to be the next Lawrence Taylor. That's how high. I mean, Micah Parsons is the truth and a half. That brother is something.
The only reason that I kind of root for the Cowboys.
You kind of root for the Cowboys.
Special. Without question, he is something special. No doubt about it. And their defense isn't bad, and obviously they did a good job for the most part against Tampa Bay last night. I mean, with the exception of the touchdown to Evans, I mean, the defense pretty LG check. You had to start off with 4 field goals. They kept you out of the end zone on several occasions, even though you went in that red zone area threatening to score. But in the end, what it comes down to is this. Your number one receiver's gone. Your number 3 receiver's gone. Your number 2, who's become a number 1, we don't know if he's ready to be a number 1. Your running back's a question mark. And now your star quarterback is down for 6 to 8 weeks. Now, when you look at the NFC East, Giants, Commanders, Eagles, we get all of that, so you got a chance. But in the grand scheme of things, ain't nobody think about the Cowboys. Season's over, bro. Season's over right now.
The season's over. And see, this is one of those things that I find amazing is I want to do one more thing before we get ready to get out of here, because right now, take a look at this. They're saying best chance to earn the number 1 seed in the AFC. The Chiefs at 48%, Buffalo at 42%, and the Bengals at 6%.
A game back of both the Chiefs and the Bills. They have the second hardest remaining strength of schedule. Here's the silver lining, though. If they win out, the model does have them as the favorite for the top spot. All right, so, Brooke, here's the thing, though. Has Cincinnati, in your mind, proven itself to be a legitimate Super Bowl contender, especially after the way they started the season?
No, I understand. I saw their first game of the season when they played the Steelers, and they did not look good. Let me tell you, the O-line did not look good. Joe Burrow did not look good. But here's the thing that Cincinnati's good at. They peak at the right time. And the fact that the offense did not have a massive drop-off without Jamar Chase tells me that this is a team that is continuing to peak. Joe Burrow also brought those glasses back out. Like, you don't wear those glasses unless you feel so confident in the direction of your team. I think that they are clicking on all cylinders. Their defense looks good. Their offense, the fact that they were able to beat the Chiefs, that's huge. I think that they could easily play themselves into the number 1 spot in the AFC and get that bye.
Love the glasses. When he pulls out the bink, I think that's when you got to start being worried, like, uh-oh, I think Joe back. But here's the thing there, and you know this,
All right, so here's the thing that's interesting, is that the Cowboys beat that team with their backup quarterback. Beat that team with their backup quarterback. So as we start looking at games, the Giants right now are sitting in a playoff position. Whether or not they make it, it'll either be them or it'll be the Commanders or possibly both. The Cowboys beat them twice. They beat Washington already. They beat teams, Minnesota, which could be the number 2 seed. They beat teams that are going to be playoff teams before they've played their best football. I'm not going to lie to you and say that the Colts, and I look at that Colts game and say, we dominated from start to finish, because we actually did not play that great of a game. But you still won 54-19. If you're winning games 54-19 and you're not playing your best football, Lord help anybody if you put together a complete game. I can only remember one game this season that the telecast decided to leave early in the third quarter, and that was Dallas Cowboys shellacking the Minnesota Vikings. Kind of interesting, don't you think, for a team that the season is over? All right, good people. I appreciate each and every one of you guys here. I've got to get the place together and looking good for the people that are coming over. All for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report.
You did one hell of a job, and the only thing else I got to say is